Hi, I'm Kiki.
And I'm Kemi.
And you're listening to
Your Advisors Will See You Now, a podcast that will help you to figure out all of your options for life after high school.
Hey, everyone. Long time no see, no listen. Welcome back to the Your Advisors Will See You Now podcast. You have Kiki and you have Kemi here, and we are bringing you a career chat. We were just talking about what we're going to title this, and we think it's a career chat. We're talking about networking today. We have a special guest with us, so please join us in welcoming Orain Williams, the founder of Brand You Motivations. Orain is a passionate entrepreneur and inspirational speaker dedicated to empowering youth in the areas of entrepreneurship, leadership, financial literacy, and networking. With a wealth of experience and global perspective gained through extensive travel, Orain brings unique insights and practical advice to every talk. Today, Orain will share valuable strategies to help unlock your potential and chart a path to success. So welcome, Orain, to the podcast. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And this is good too. Your focus is youth, but I feel like this is good for anyone that is listening, whether you're high school, middle school, college, professional level. This could be good advice for anyone. I'll be taking notes. I'm sure Kemi will be too. So we're going to jump right into it. So, Orain, if you could just give us your definition of what networking is and why you believe it's important for young adults and adults when they're starting their careers.
So I think networking for some people can be an intimidating word, right? You think networking, you think it's some big event and people running around business cards and so on and so forth. So sometimes I like to say, networking is just building relationships. That's all it essentially is, So don't be intimidated by the word networking or a networking event. I think networking is building relationships with people. I think there may be a question later on, so I don't want to jump ahead. But yeah, essentially, that's my definition of networking, building relationships with people.
I like that too, because it simplifies it. I think you're right. People, I know when I was in college or even still today, sometimes like networking events, it's always like event is behind it, but that simplifies it. You're just building a relationship with somebody. It doesn't have to be this big scary word. It really is just like building rapport, getting to know somebody that can be, it's something that can be within your network. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be, something scary. I like that though, simple.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of carried over into our next question of like, what are some misconceptions people often have about networking, or even from like younger folks too, even adults too, because I feel like there's so many different ways that people can take it.
So I think a big misconception is that networking has to take place in a quote unquote networking event, and it doesn't have to. Another misconception could be that, maybe you have to be looking for a job to network. Or, looking to build a business to network. Networking can take place anytime, anywhere, I want to say. I would say those are two big misconceptions. Oh, here's a third one. You have to have a business card to network as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the 21st century. You can have a digital business card if anything.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so key too, because I think a lot of people in that space are like, oh yeah, I think a lot of people fall into those two spaces of I'm looking for a job or I'm starting a business, so I'm looking for clients. And that's like so often what you'll see. And it's far more beneficial if you're networking, whether you have a job, whether you have a business, whether you don't, like it's just building those relationships because you never know what could arise from those opportunities. So in general, just having that mindset of continuing to grow relationships. It's such a less intimidating term. You're right, Kiki, saying building relationships versus networking, because it feels like there's like a pressure to it. But building relationships throughout really is essential no matter what state or phase you're in life.
Absolutely agree with you there.
Mm-hmm. So this question coming from two introverted people, myself and Kemi, what are your strategies or tips for people that are intimidated? Like we just said that it doesn't have to be intimidating, or people that are just naturally shy. They get into either big crowds or even small talk can be difficult for them. What are your strategies? This is just more how to interact with people, but what are your tips for people who are introverted, shy when it comes to building relationships with people, for a business, for a career, or just for the future?
So, great question. And I remember during a conference I did, I spoke at, and one of the students after on, he kind of asked the same thing, just telling me that they're shy, they're afraid to, speak to people. I think a great way to kind of help ease you is look, I'm going to say, find your tribe. So find something of interest to you. So let me just take anime, for example. Maybe you go to an event for people who are into anime. So this way, everyone there likes what you like. So you might have an easier time having a conversation with someone because there's a theme to that event versus you're going to a networking event. You're at some
Mhm.
anime event, or let's say you like gardening and you find a meetup group who likes to garden, and you can just go there and talk to somebody and, oh, what's the newest plant you got? Because you'll feel more comfortable, you'll feel at ease, and maybe you can use that as a practice strategy. You go to a few
Mhm.
things like that, communities that you're comfortable in, and just have a conversation with one person, one new person. You don't have to go there trying to meet several new people at once, and you could kind of ease your way to get comfortable talking to strangers. Because if you're in a new environment, but the environment is comfortable because of the theme or the topic, or
Mhm.
everyone has that common thing, you might feel more comfortable speaking to people, and you get to open up. Another thing I like to do sometimes is maybe sometimes people have difficulty doing things by themselves, right? So maybe
Mhm.
go eat somewhere at a restaurant by yourself, but don't sit at a table. If there's a bar, sit at the bar and maybe sit next to someone, and you could just, let's say there's TV on, sports or whatever, you could just easily strike up a conversation with someone, and it could make you feel a little bit more comfortable just using that as a practice technique for when you want to maybe go to a formal networking event, or you want to really build more relationships with people that can help you out.
I think those are great tips. Just because the fact that you're saying, I just didn't think about this. Like Kemi does this. So Kemi's a life coach, and she does like you do like coaching meetup kind of things because you're trying to learn more about life coaching or make connections, which is networking. But I think that's great. Like when you're in an environment, like whether you're like a sports fanatic or you said gardening, anime, it's easy because you already know that stuff. So you're not having
Yeah.
to. It's not really small talk because you're not really having to
Think
pull
about what
straws
you're gonna
to like find.
say, what to
Yeah,
ask.
exactly. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. Something else I heard you say too, you said you don't have to go to this event and meet a bunch of people. It could be one. So I hear you saying too, like setting goals, for yourself at a networking event. Like so if one goal is, meet one person, what would you say like some other goals could be for when you attend these types of events or just meeting people in general?
I think just meeting people in general, and just enjoy yourself. Or even if you say, you know what, I want to meet two people, and maybe, or give yourself, if it's, let's say it's a 3 hour event, and maybe that might feel scary to be in an environment for
Mhm.
that long. Say, I'm going to go to this event for 1 hour and try to meet one new person. So it could give you a little bit more ease and comfort, and make you more comfortable to be there and to meet someone else. So yeah, I would say that's a good goal to have when you go to one of these events.
I love that conversation. That's so life goaly. It's, it's so life coachy. It's like, okay, you want to go to this event. What do you want to get out of it? What are the goals when you go in? So we're not just showing up in this space. So, or even
That's
like when we
Kenny.
were, I just love that so much. It's like, how do you know you're getting there that you're accomplishing and doing the thing that you want to do? Or even when I think back to the Kiki, we were talking about to college students that are in the classroom, and we're like, set a goal for yourself to raise your hand at least twice in the classroom.
Hmm.
Like, to make sure that you are getting noticed, or even and that way you're or stepping out to go to office hours for students. That way they can meet with teachers, because that's still a relationship building in itself too. So it's always nice to set those little goals. I think that was really helpful talking about going into spaces where there's people with similar interests, because it can definitely curate more easy discussion. And I think off the top of my head, some of the easy, starter questions are like, oh, is someone sitting here? Like, oh, where are you from? How'd you hear about this event? It's like those are kind of the easy, ways to start pivoting in. Then you can go into like that natural conversation, like, oh, so you like anime? And it can kind of splinter on to different kind of conversations. What do you think are some closing like conversation marks? Like how do you close? Those are good starters, but how do you close when you're finishing and you're ready to go on to the next person, or you're leaving the event and you want to maybe exchange information?
I would say, it was great meeting you today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. I'm gonna, talk to some other people, or I'm getting ready to leave. Can we exchange contact information? I think those are some good closers, but absolutely, you want to thank the person for the conversation and say, kind of nice to meet you. And then ask for that contact, ask for that business card, something like that.
When working with young audiences, what do you find is, I'm not sure if you answer this question, what do you find is their main kind of contact? Are they exchanging phone numbers? Are they exchanging Instagram? I don't know what the young folks are doing. They mostly are doing TikToks now, but now it's going to be gone. Are they exchanging Instagrams? Especially if they're high schoolers, I'm not anticipating many people have LinkedIn's yet. So what do you know what they're commonly doing?
I think it might vary. Just depending on the person. So I think maybe even in that close and ask, what's the best way to contact you or to stay in touch? Yeah, that's a great way to close. What's the best way for us to stay in touch? It's great to connect social media wise, but if you could have more of that personal connection, especially, if you could get the phone number or the email, to be more personal versus just, here's my Instagram. I wouldn't go around just giving out my Instagram, but that's just me personally. I don't think that's a good idea. But there are some young people who are on LinkedIn. I work with one of my clients, and I'm in a school, and he asked for my Instagram, and we connected on Instagram, and not Instagram, LinkedIn. And I saw his LinkedIn, and the next class that I saw him, I gave him some tips to kind of, even though you may not be working, you can still put some stuff on LinkedIn, projects you might be doing in school or volunteer wise, to just kind of start building that online portfolio on LinkedIn. So there's high school students on LinkedIn.
Okay. It's good to know. For listeners out there too, you can start building your LinkedIn. And that leads us to my next question. When they're building their LinkedIn or their portfolio in general, what are mistakes that you see young people or people making on their LinkedIn? Like, I know a big one that we always heard was make sure your email is professional. Make sure it's not Candy Pop 999. That's a nice one, because there's been worse out there for sure. But things like that. What are some mistakes you're seeing people make?
Not having a photo. Definitely want to have a photo, and you want to have a banner photo as well. If you're not sure what to put, look for other students' examples, or any professional. Look at other examples of ones. You could even just Google some examples of nice covers to add to yours. I just added one on mine last year. Maybe not having enough items or stuff to show that you're active on LinkedIn. Yeah, you have a page, but maybe you have a 2-sentence bio and that's it. You can say a little bit about yourself, say what you're studying, maybe the career path you're interested in, or things like that. I would say to include, but not having enough on your profile is probably the top mistake. I would say not having enough and not having a photo.
I'm also curious to stay active. I do a horrible job of being active on LinkedIn. What would you say is a good way to stay active? Posting, we think about Instagram or TikTok, we post funny things or whatever. This is going to be a lot more curated because there's a goal at the end of it. So what would you say are things, especially for a young person, what should they be posting or reposting, sharing, things like that?
Great question. Even for myself, I posted about this the other day. I really wasn't active on LinkedIn that much. I had a LinkedIn. I rarely posted until last year. I started to beef up my LinkedIn usage, posting more, commenting, liking people's stuff. So for, my young people, I would just say, if you're working on a team project in school, post about the project. We worked on this environmental study to save the world. Post about projects you're doing in school. If you do a volunteer activity, you did feed the homeless last weekend. Hey, post about that. If you're looking to, do an internship, you could, post, hey, I'm interested in doing an internship this summer. I'm excited about these career fields. Try to post even if it's twice a month, post something. You got an A on your chemistry exam or lab work, post about it. It's a way for you to shine and really get out there the amazing things you might be doing in school and outside of school. Those are some tips for my high school students. And the same can apply for college students as well. You could do the same things.
How should young adults follow up after meeting someone at a networking event or through a mutual connection?
It's important to follow up within, I would say, 48 hours. Send an email, send a LinkedIn connection request, thanking them for meeting. If you can regurgitate something you spoke about during your conversation with that person, that's even better. Hi, John. It was great meeting you at last night's Alzheimer's event. I know you talked about you're getting ready to go to Florida for vacation with your family. Have a nice trip. Look forward to connecting with you when you get back. Regurgitating something that you spoke to not only lets them know you were paying attention, but it might also remind them of who you were. So that's a key important part. So I follow up sooner rather than later. I'm not the best with following up myself, but I'm trying to be better. I recognize my downfalls. So I try to definitely reach out, if not the next day, within 48 hours. I would say it's the best way to follow up.
Good tips. What would you say are some ways that young adults can use their network to find a job? So this is like really speaking to, like, you should always be professional, of course, but really speaking to that professionalism, how you can market and brand yourself for a job. How should they go about doing that?
So I think a key part of networking is everybody wants something, right? I don't think the initial thing should be as you meet somebody, you're asking them for the job right away, unless it comes up, right? You want to try to be able to be the person that may be a resource or be able to give them or provide them something. You don't want to just meet someone, hey, do you have a job maybe at your company? Unless it came up in conversation. But it's important to build that rapport. So maybe you have, you send that initial email. Maybe you ask them, hey, can we, do a 15-minute coffee chat? I'm interested in your career. I'd like to learn some more. And then maybe the third time you're communicating with them, do you know of any opportunities that may be within your field that I can apply for or something like that? I think is a better way than you just meeting someone and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. But also on your, LinkedIn profile, you could put open to work. You could put a post about what you're looking for. And it doesn't have to just be there. You should also spread the message within your network. That's how I got my first job out of college, is just letting any and everyone know I was in the market looking for a job. And I got a job through someone in my network who worked at a company, and I applied and was able to get the job. So I think it's letting people know that you're looking for an opportunity somewhere, but not being too, trying to think of the best word to say. Now, you don't want to be too overly aggressive with it. And I think it's important not to be although that's the alternative motive, right? You don't just want to meet someone and you shake their hand. Hey, I'm Michael. Do you have any opportunities at your company? Like, you don't want to be that person. You want to be smooth with it. It has to be smooth.
Right.
How can young adults maintain their connections over time, especially if they aren't actively job searching?
I think you should. I think another misconception, well, we talked about that before, right? So building those relationships doesn't have to just be about when you're looking for work. That's why it's great to connect with somebody on LinkedIn. So this way you could kind of stay connected. Although you're not like speaking to them regularly, maybe you see something that they post about, you comment on it, like it. Maybe if you want to really build strong relationships with people, or maybe certain people, maybe not everyone, maybe you touch base with them quarterly, hey, it's been a while since we spoke. I'd love to connect for coffee. If you have somebody local and you could connect in person, even better. But even if you can't, just ask hey, can we spend 15 minutes? I'd love to catch up, so on and so forth. But I know we live in, busy time. Everyone's doing multiple things. So it's a great way to be connected with them on LinkedIn or other professional platforms. And maybe you carve out a 1 hour a week to just go through your feed, hit a couple likes, comment on some stuff, and so on and so forth. And this way you can stay connected that way.
Mhm. I'm kind of going rogue now, but what are some of the most popular questions you get from young people about networking in general, like how to maintain network or what they should be doing? I know you speak to them all the time. What are some popular questions you get?
So I definitely say this: if they're shy, that question, what should they have on their profile? Where are some places that they can do some networking? And just other random tips they might ask for. So another tip, just a golden gem I want to drop right now is if I'm in a space and I have the opportunity to get the microphone and ask a question, I'm going to take advantage of that because that's my time to shine. But also keep in mind, you have a small window, so you don't want to be that guy. Yes, I have a question. Now you're taking 5 minutes of whatever's going on to ask you a question. Make sure you have a bona fide question. Also, use that opportunity to introduce yourself and maybe drop a gem. So, for example, if I'm a student, hi, my name is Arain Williams. I'm studying business management. How did you blah 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 blah? So you kind of introduced yourself by name. You said what you're studying for. So maybe if someone, or you could say, I'm studying business management and I'm looking for an internship this summer. But how did you overcome blah blah blah? Right. So now you've just let the entire room of 30 people, no matter how many people it is, know that that's what you're looking for. So if someone has that opportunity, they may come to you after the event. Oh, hey, Arain, I heard you said you're looking for an internship. Blah 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 blah. So it's a great way to kind of introduce yourself to everybody at one time and then let the people come to you at the end who may want to connect with you. But you just, most importantly, do not take too much time trying to do that because people don't like when they get on the microphone. Yeah, I have a question, and they're giving their whole life story, taking 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely that makes so much sense too, right? Because even when I think of when I'm in a space where there's like young adults or like teenagers, when someone does like go to the mic or they ask a question and it's like thoughtful, that person always stands out in the audience of like, oh, this person actually asked that question because one, it stands out like, oh, they're kind of forward thinking. They could just be chilling in the audience, right? But they're actually utilizing this opportunity and like this space to like stand out, ask the questions that they need. And then two, building off of like what you were saying too, after they do that, it's like if they were to see like the speaker or the panel that they were at that day, if they were able to shake hands with people afterwards, then the people would be like, oh my goodness, he asked a question, he stood out of the crowd, then he introduced himself. It's like this kid wants to go places and he's doing the moves necessary. And even when you just think of those 3 steps, right? It's not that hard. Like I think we think so much like it has to be, I have to do all this and create a portfolio first. It's like, no, those action steps are actually not that hard. And it's so easy for someone to see like who you are and doing those things too. So I definitely encourage people out there to try to do something like that, especially when they're young. When they're young, they're like, oh my gosh, they're young, they're doing that. I wish I did that when I was younger,
Yeah. And to add on to that, now if you're like, let's say you get to talk to the panelists or speakers afterwards, hey, Mr. Johnson, I really enjoyed what you shared. Can we take a photo? Now you got something you could post on LinkedIn. I went to this such and such event this weekend. I learned blah, blah, blah. And that's your post. It was great meeting so-and-so. And there's something to add to your portfolio that employers or other people will see and like, oh wow, they're doing some awesome stuff. Or oh, I wanted to, and then your fellow students might be like, man, he told me to come and I didn't come, or I should have went, and so on and so forth.
It really is that simple.
Yeah, that's simple. And that same tactic can work for young adults, people just entering their career as well. When you go to an event, talk about it. Let people know that you went, what you learned from it, what you got out of it.
And I guess the last question that I have is, how did you end up getting into the space of trying to speak to young adults? And I know you also talk about networking with them, but you also talk about like financial literacy and leadership and entrepreneurship. What led you into this space?
So after college, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you're not familiar with the book, look it up. So essentially, that book really opened my mind to realize that within underserved communities, we're really not taught about money. We're not taught about real estate. We're not taught about investing. Things have definitely changed since then, and I'm loving it. But that's what made me want to be able to go in my community and be able to talk to young people about it, because I think it's important to get this information at as early in an age as possible, because it's an important life skill that we should learn, because there's other people who are learning it at an early age. So that's kind of how I got to this space. And for some reason, I thought about networking, because a lot of my friends and people who know me will say how I know so many people. And so I thought, that's a good, important skill to instill in young people as well, because I was an involved student in high school. I was like in Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA. I was in DECA. I did things that most of my friends probably weren't doing. And those were other opportunities to just meet other young people, like-minded people, and so on and so forth, and just expand my network.
I was going to ask, what are some success stories that you've seen from the students that you've worked with, young people that you've worked with, whether it's like in their financial literacy, they were really shy and now they're, able to go out and speak to people, like it's second nature kind of thing. But yeah, what are some success stories you've seen?
I've seen students just become more comfortable speaking in front of other people. I've seen students, start businesses, and even though they're going in a career path as well, just being able to learn some skills that they can utilize to earn some additional money for themselves. I've seen some students go on and become, college athletes, and use some of the skills that they've learned through a workshop or through when I was doing some mentoring programs, and use those skills as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for the work that you're doing for young people. That's really what our basis is as well. Just making sure that we learn that we can help young people, the people that come behind us, learn from what we didn't know, and now we know it. Kemi and I, our background is in academic advising, so we have just seen a lot of students, coming through, just not having a clue. And even as an advisor, it's like little spurts of you have a short, like back to the short window. You have a short window of time to talk with them, unless they come back and see you often. But most of them, they come and see you one time, you may never see them again if you work at a large institution. But just if you can drop those like little gems of how to do well in your classes, how to network, how to stay on top of your finances, whatever you can to like drop a little gem. So we appreciate the work that you're doing, because yeah, absolutely. Because I wish we say it all the time. I wish I would have had this when I was younger, or paid attention to it, I should say.
Yeah, and sometimes I have to mention that to the young people. Like, look, I was your age at some time, and I wish I had this information. I'm here trying to have you not go through things that I may have went through or not gone through, and trying to help give you, a push forward. We can't. Maybe not everyone may realize it at the time, even in your work, but sometime in the future they might be like, you know what? I really wish I listened to what such and such said 10 years ago, or whatever the case may be. But it is good to see and just help mold and shape the next generation in their minds. Sometimes I'm like, wow, these kids are really great, and then sometimes I'm like, what are they doing? But it's all great though.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer some of our questions, and definitely drop some gems for our listeners. Is there any way that our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, do you have like any social media platforms that you'd like to share, or a website?
Absolutely. So I want to provide a link for the audience to provide some feedback on our episode, and they'll get a free bonus gift of some resources, and it'll have my contact information and social media links as well. And absolutely, please do connect with me on LinkedIn as well. But I have a very unique name, so I'm not hard to find, even if you Google me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Go ahead.
I will give the link verbally and have you add it to your show notes, but it is talk.ac/Orane Speaks, ORANE Speaks, and just enter in the code podcast.
Perfect. And what we'll do, guys, is we'll put it in our show notes too, so that way you guys can access it that way too. So for those who are listening. But thank you, everyone. And thank you, Orane, for coming on this podcast and just giving giving the tools to the youth and the adults that that need it in terms of knowledge for networking. And me and Kiki definitely took some tools for ourselves so that way we can keep it in our kit for what we need to be doing as well. So thank you so much for that. And everyone, thank you for listening and listening into another episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Please make sure to follow us on our platforms as well, on our website, youradvisorswillseeyounow.com. We also have TikTok, if it's still lasting, Instagram and Facebook, and that's Yawson Podcast, YAWSN podcast for those social medias. But until the next one, we will see ya.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the latest episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Please make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages and check out our website. Take a look at the show notes below.
And please make sure to subscribe and share this podcast. Also, show us some love and please leave a 5-star review. Catch you next time.
See ya.